Good morning, everybody. For the dedicated few, first to the stream, thank you so much for joining here this morning. As you can see, I'm in a little bit of a trade. Don't have a lot of hope for it, but we will go ahead and get things going. I'm just kind of prepping my chart. A little different from yesterday right off the bat. Hopefully that is very obvious. Good morning, Eric. Hellboy. What's up, guys? Thanks again for being here bright and early. I know it is a little bit of a jaunt to get here this early in the day, but I appreciate you nonetheless. Anybody catch any overnight action? Indeed. That is what we're here for, getting that dollar. I didn't take any overnight trades. I just threw this one on before we started, kind of off the basis of rejecting this test after breaking above it. So I was looking to see, can we get back down to this 80 area and go from there. Yeah, Eric, I keep forgetting you're kind of in the lunch break for you compared to the rest of us that are probably just starting our days, depending on where we're at. Com, what's up, man? Thank you for joining. I think today is an interesting one, guys. As you can see, they just keep rolling things up and out. Every day, the profile to the upside kind of looks the same. Turn the mic up a little bit. Rain, you can't hear me? Let me see if I can move it a little closer. Oh my God, that thing is so bright. Is that a little bit better? Rain, mic check. Confirm, rain. I know there's a delay. Don't leave me hanging now. All right, there we go. I moved it a little closer, but now you can see the microphone a little bit. Hopefully the camera obsessives out there aren't going to care. All right, guys. So yeah, as far as you can see on the screen, they keep kind of rolling up and out, meaning they are betting that we do not go much higher than that if we even reach it. So as far as the straddle coming in on the day, let's take a little peek there. Priced right now for about 33 points. So let's do this. So right now it's kind of pricing up here from current spot. So just a hair higher. Obviously we've got a bigger range to play in, but if I was looking at this just at a glance right now, this is honestly the first time I've looked at it today. We've got a range there. I'd say we've kind of got a bigger structural range like this. So then it's all these little pit stops in between, right? So I don't think I need to draw one for each little range. I think your guys' eyes work, but just for shits, let's go ahead and do it anyway, right? So we got a little zone here, we got a little zone here, we've got this, and then we've got the big opportunity area up here. So I'm really interested to see what happens. I know a lot of people don't like trading all-time highs, right? But if you paid attention yesterday at all, whether you caught me on Instagram, if you were in the Discord, it's kind of jumping up and down yesterday. And if we kind of look at that, we had an initial zone, and that was the ceiling where this kind of positioning was, right? The big block of green was kind of sitting here. And that shifted intraday. And if we actually go look at that on SPX and look at yesterday's, right? This is how yesterday ended, guys. So if you actually look from the SPX perspective, you know, we hit that kind of initial wall here, rejected down. Oops, sorry, yesterday here. And I went long right about here at this 73.40, looking for this potential squeeze move. It tried, but we left it so late. It was literally at the death, end of day. So we didn't really have the ability to press higher because of these bigger positions. So yesterday's action shifted. The intraday positions really changed, which made it, to me, more attractive to put the risk on back to the upside because of that potential. Everything else was telling me we should have either kind of gotten stuck in this area down towards 73.20, but obviously we reclaimed 73.40 and made the move up. If you're looking on ES, it was like 65, and then we got that push. So today coming in, that same kind of ceiling that we had on the day yesterday is kind of sitting over here over this 74.05. But you can see there's this big area where if you get a strong enough sustained bid, you could make the case for like a 74.45 on ES today. So that's what I would be looking for, is what do we do up here at this like overnight high area? Do we get the extension? Otherwise, it's a bunch of these kind of little zones that you could maybe accelerate into. And from the actual, what do you want to call it, like gamma perspective, right? I'm trying to think here, 73.50. I'm going to go back to SPX, guys. It's a little easier to do it because it's a one-to-one, right? Really, not worrying about yesterday's positions, just looking at today's. I think you can see the gamma doesn't really become kind of a headwind until you're much higher. In the meantime, you're not really getting sold against quite as strongly, and the floor is still pretty solid underneath us. So if I was just looking at SPX, I think, you know, you obviously don't want to get down to yesterday's kind of make or break pivot. That's where things get a little more dicey and maybe you get sucked lower. So I think the make or break spot on SPX today is probably going to be holding over, as long as we're holding over like 73.50, 55, I think this is the support we don't want to lose. So if we look at ES for that, it's kind of this 80 area. This is where we want to hold on to get these tests to 7,400 and higher. And that's with the idea of charm. So like, what is kind of the passive supportive path that can kind of be the buffer to whatever the broader flow is? And I think today I would consider this 73.80 my kind of have to hold it if I was going to break the day into, do I want to go higher? Or does this mean we could maybe probe a bit lower? But again, I think the thing to recall is that when I talk about shape with you guys a lot, if you're not under something and you're over it, how does that shape the like the passive support idea? And you can see these all want to kind of roll up, right? Everything is looking at like climbing the ladder. So if you're not down here engaging any of this, you can pretty much say 73.50 is like the floor on the day, that it would take some really strong sustained selling to break below this line. So I think in the pre-market here, let's say we get down and we bounce 73.80, which is pretty much the overnight open. You're looking for longs up to 74.05. You're looking for a break over this to capture this next leg up. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, you know, don't we need a day to cool off after all these moves up? Because it's been pretty much a straight shot since Monday, right? Monday, you got the overnight run up, you got the gap and go yesterday, or sorry, Tuesday. Yesterday, we got another overnight run up. We set another new all-time high, right? Like we just kind of keep doing this. And then tonight we've had another kind of run higher. So what I'd be looking for into the open is, does that sustain? Do we test this 73.80 here in the pre-market and make the run back up to 74.05? That's kind of what I would be looking for. But that's me. Do you guys have anything that you have thoughts on with regards to the market today going in? Any bias? Do you think we have to pull back? Do you think we need a chop day? What do you guys think? I know it's early, so don't everybody chime in at once. Bueller. I know there's only 20 of you. I appreciate it, but you got to get me some engagement here, guys. Bullish? Yeah, it's hard not to be off the back of these moves, right? I know we've got some data pre-market, but I don't know that it's kind of going to move anything like it would for what's to come with like NFP potentially. But even then, I think we're in a spot to just kind of hold and go up. Exactly, Hellboy. It's hard to fight the trend. You know, I'm not in the prediction business, futures trader. There's every reason to think that, you know, there could be another spark in that conflict for sure, but I don't know that I'm willing to predict that one, because every headline seems to get absorbed and up we go, even when it seems like it should be a bad one, right? We'll see. We will see where the risk lies. I'll probably go ahead and move this trade to break even. I don't really want to give anything back. I don't believe in it too much. Like I said, I feel like we have the ability here to break from the 74.05 and make another big run today. So we'll see. I was kind of hoping we would get like an overnight open retest just because the range has been decently constricted. Obviously we had that pop up, which looks like it was right at the London Open, and they've pretty much kept selling ever since. So we'll see how long that persists into the New York Open. Couple hours away yet. But beyond that, any individual names you guys are tracking? I don't really have anything I pay too close attention to on that front. I'm kind of a ES SPX guy primarily, but I'm happy to look at something else if you guys want to. But for me, I am just going to sit in this little short here and see if we can't get that extension down towards 80. Yeah, Eric, to me, I'm of the same mind. That's why I want to see this kind of test back down towards the overnight open. I think we could do with a little like prove it move, but we'll see. Yeah, futures, I don't know. You can take what he says with a grain of salt for the most part. So until it's not just a headline and it's something tangible, I don't really put any stock in it. I have many thoughts on the global macro picture, but you know, I'm just a dude. And if you actually thought the market priced everything in according to the real level of risk, you know, it'd be a different market, but it's not. So you can't have all that insider trading and betting going on and think that anyone has a vested interest in a real shock to the market at this point. Yeah, Power Hour was really fun yesterday, Com. I was really excited to catch that move. You know, I caught about 30, 35 points on ES, got some SPX trades in on that move. So it was really fun to watch that go. What I was really hoping for, though, was once we got over that 73.90, the potential was there for a pop, and we got it, but it just couldn't get any higher because we left it so late. All those positions above were also getting hedged and really countered the potential for a really fun kind of gamma squeeze into the close. I mean, you got to think about it, though. The fact that we got it at all was so counter to everything else, but to be able to call kind of the top yesterday and say we're going here and then to get it was really fun for me. So like I said, I'm not normally in the prediction business, but when you have data on your side, you're kind of making some informed decisions, right? You're making a probability based bet. So that's where, you know, I think a lot of people struggle at all-time highs because they're just looking at numbers on a chart and no proof that anything has been there yet or will get there. But when you're using the market maker positioning, you can literally put it and say, I know X amount of people are positioned here. The expectation for what they'll do if price gets there is this. And if I don't see that reaction, then I know the market flow is going to dictate this other reaction, right? So that is what I think the power in paying attention to the dealer positioning and how those hedging flows can influence the market. I think yesterday I couldn't have asked for a better testament to that idea. Both in the morning, you know, where we rejected initially, how we behaved after we did, and then the ability to pretty much call what the top could be to the number was pretty fun. So I'm sure for a lot of people it sounds hokey or not real, but if you guys are here and you're paying attention, I think you probably know why I was able to do that yesterday. Yeah, Com, that's it. All you can do is get your piece, man. Too many people get caught up in, oh, I shoulda, coulda, woulda, you know, just accept what you did get and look at it as, you know, being grateful for that piece that you did catch. Rain says, until they get called out on their debt, the market is bullish on them. My concern is the market is going to ask these companies to show profit for their spend. Yeah, Rain, I'm much of the same mind. The accounting has historically been a little wishy-washy on everything around this CapEx and these data centers and the AI narrative. So I do think the risk is there. I think the energy risk is probably one that's understated with regards to that. Oh, we're hundreds of billions of dollars of CapEx and we're building all these data centers that need power. And now you've got rocketing energy prices that on paper is going down, but production and output of the actual source is not yet being felt over here. Just look at Europe and Asia and some of these other places. So until this conflict is resolved, and even after it's resolved, I think those shocks are going to show up down the road. So strike while the iron's hot, ride the trend. But if you're kind of a macro person, there's every reason to think there's still cause for concern. Seen your charts a few times, never heard an explanation of how you get circles, you or your indicator. Are you talking about these little blobs? These are just drawn on. This is just me just kind of saying like, hey, here's some help to figure out what these little zones are. What are the ranges on the day within the ranges? Yep, I just want to make sure I understood futures. Yeah, the indicator in the background is something that is mine as well, but it's pulling data from another provider that I just run in the morning pre-market with the belief that these positions generally are held all day long and hedged around all day long, so they're the most influential. And then, no, I wouldn't say volume profile. I mean, in a way, I guess, because this is a sign of like where things are sitting, but it's not like updating every minute or whatever. But it does just give you this gauge of like where there's big size that has to have a corresponding futures trade against it as price moves to it. So I'm sure at the end of the day, if you looked at a volume profile versus this pre-market profile and said up until the London close, for example, I'm sure it could, you know, correlate somehow. I don't know. Let's just look. Right now, I wouldn't say that, you know, maybe here because it's correlating somewhat with that strongest position. But again, this information, this market maker kind of position is, how do I get that to go away? Yeah. Anyway, these positions are most influential during the cash session. And the reason why I say that is in a lot of cases, just like yesterday, you'll get kind of like an initial reaction sometimes. Like if we actually opened up here into these dealer longs, that initial response, if we actually opened in the middle of that, would be like an immediate sell. And the reason for that is that delta doesn't really adjust until market opens, right? Like that initial reaction, that hedge response is because we've opened into something. The delta on all of those options being held in those places has changed a lot if we gap up. Same thing if we gap down, you'll get these kind of interesting responses, and people are always like, oh, that's bad. In most cases, it's not bad or good. It's just a mechanical response, right? It's what they have to do because they're holding those positions. So yeah, so I'm interested to see, again, we'll just draw it again for anyone who is joining a little late, but yeah, I think this is like the primary spot we'll watch here in our pre-market session. How are we acting in this zone? Do we kind of get back up and hold over this to expand the range higher? This is your upper range. And then you've got these little ones, you know, down here. I'd say this is like your risk area. I kind of said it before. I kind of have 70, where can I draw this? 73.80 is kind of like my don't want to be under this one kind of line. That may be a futures trader. I'm not a big VWAP guy. I'm just going off of what I can prove, you know. Nothing that lags. And then I'm just watching for the reactions at those areas. Averages are averages. But it's no secret, a lot of institutions will base kind of fair value around those things. So nothing wrong with it if you use it. Morning, Victoria. Thank you. Yeah, that was a fun one. Chasing trades. How many years am I trading? Effectively? Profitably? Probably 3.5, I would say. But before that, you know, I've said it on these streams before, like my journey really kick-started in 24. When I took the mastermind that fall. So spring of 24 through that year was pretty good. I took the mastermind that fall, and that was kind of the big like swing for me. It really transformed everything that I was doing. And I just could not be more thankful for that experience. It really set me off on the journey. And then once I started leveraging this information, then it took me to another level. And I think the big reason for that is because of the ability to just better define risk. If you can kind of understand these positions and what the mechanical reaction is going to be or should be, you take that information on board, you watch for those reactions, you see things prove themselves out, and you go from there. So like for me, I'll be honest, trading in these pre-markets is not super effective with this profile to me more often than not. Like you don't get the continuation. So that's why I'm not really looking to put a normal stop on this one. I got in a little late because I didn't wake up until whatever time. So normally I would have been looking here. This is exactly what I would have been watching for. We broke over this kind of initial resistance. Does it turn into support or not? And if it doesn't, and it can't hold that, then I'm looking for any sign of weakness to find a way to the next balance lower. This little one, I normally wouldn't give much credence to it, but because we are in such a strong uptrend, you're kind of watching for these midpoints. I was really hoping we would just go test the overnight open, but that's how I would normally trade this during the day. But obviously in pre-market, you get way less like continuation, and it's hard to like take a counter trend trade, but I just wanted to throw something on. Probably should have taken the quick, you know, $300-400, but oh well. Chasing trades. Is the mastermind a paid Discord from Jake? It is actually. it's when I did it, it was like a commitment. It was like $3,000 or something like that, and it was an intensive, like every night for however many days kind of thing. Covered all the lessons. You had some follow-up lessons, and now you have the access to every single one that he did, which is like 15 of them. So I was in that 15th group. I was in that last one, and I think there's like 7 lessons in that one. And it's really great. It's powerful, especially if you're someone who's newer and you're really trying to like hone in on a system that's repeatable and functional, or at the very least, like a way to just more tightly define your risk and know what kind of a trader you are. It can kind of help you get more comfortable with, am I more comfortable scalping, or if I want to be more comfortable holding for bigger moves, how do I know based on like the multi-time frame analysis, like what is the strongest place for me to like put risk on in an established trend, right? Or, identifying the potential reversal. Until I was in Mastermind, I didn't truly have a consistent handle on that. And I think if you are someone who is just like really trying to just master the basics of price action and trend analysis, I could advocate for it more, And if you guys are trying to do what I'm doing and leveraging this additional data, I think it's most beneficial for people who at least have a strong handle on price action. I think the difficult thing for a lot of people is the idea of two-way trading, meaning like you don't necessarily care one way or the other coming into the day if it's bullish or bearish. Like you're just focused in on this range. And if this happens, then I'm expecting this, I'm taking this trade unless I see this. And then I need to consider the opposite or a different strategy to capture that direction or make profit off of the options, right? So there's a few different ways to do it. But if you're interested, again, guys, this is not a place to sell things, but someone asked about Mastermind, so I'm just going to give you a link here. If you follow this WAP link, you basically get access to that program. There are a bunch of us in there also that like will have our own channel where I'm signaling this stuff like yesterday, like the trades that I was taking, my rationale on this. Like not every day do I update Instagram. Instagram's mostly like a days I'm not streaming to get a plan out there, and then an end of day review just to see how the plan performed, right? But intraday is where I do a lot of that. And then there's a code. I don't know if this is the right one or not, guys. But it's code stream, I believe, takes it down 50% or something. But the nice thing is with that, you can kind of get through the Mastermind material at like your own pace. For everybody that took it originally, it was like a really intensive thing. It was every night for however many days in a row. So like you really were just trying to like digest it all. And Jake always warned you, like, don't try to use this immediately. Like really study the material, take your time, let it really like sink in. And I think when you kind of don't have that pressure and you just have access to all this material and you're already going to be in there for a month, like the pressure's off a little bit and you can really just take your time and master it a little bit more. So yeah, I recommend it, but not going to sell anything, but that is something you can pursue. And yeah, guys, if there's anything that you want to ask me more deeply, I'll just share my Instagram with you here and you guys can reach out to me there. I've had quite a few people in my DMs looking for help or asking questions on the specifics of leveraging this or other, providers for Gamma. I'm happy to have those conversations. Got any soccer fans in here? Trying to keep my shit together. My team just, I'm an Arsenal fan. We're going to the Champions League final, guys, and we might win the Premier League, so I'm trying really hard to like keep my feet on the ground. I was covering for Christian the other day while they were playing. It was so hard to pay attention. Let's see here. Do I ever look at VIX? Oh, not Man U. At least you're not a Chelsea fan, Eric. I can't stomach that. Or City, really. Do you ever look at VIX? Yeah, VIX is hugely informative to me. Not just VIX, but also like VX1. So like the futures, just to see how those two things are entwined. And then VVIX as well. I don't know why it's not on my chart right now. So 93. So it's dropping a little bit. But VIX is hugely informative to me because I'm looking to see more on my my options chain and my broker actually to see like what is the implied volatility doing versus like how much it's realizing. So like I would be expecting IV skew to be like accelerating in a down move. But then what I'm watching for is if we get into some of these dealer long positions, how is that shifting? Is it persisting and growing? Meaning that the dealer long areas are not actually absorbing that volatility. And that would kind of be a signal for a reversal, right? That's why on a lot of those days like today, if we got down to 73.50 and maybe broke below it, I'd be watching that IV to figure out like, okay, do we have the potential to go lower, or are we going to start slowing down on any selling? And where can I start looking for that bounce reaction? Generally, when you get into these areas of these dealer longs, it's kind of like a crash pad, right? Especially when you see it where it gets smaller and then bigger. This is like the catch. So by the time it gets here, this is a really strong like bounce expectation because it's already like slowed a little bit here, slowed a little more, probably not going beyond this point. So this is where I'd be looking to see if that reaction is playing out. And I look at volatility measures for that specific thing. Does that answer your question? Good morning, trader. Thanks for being here bright and early. The dedicated few. This is kind of a brutal time slot, so I appreciate you guys joining wherever you are. I know for some it's not that early, but for others it is. But we've kind of got our plan laid out here if you guys are joining late. We've got some big opportunities above us, obviously. It looks like pretty clear sailing over 74.05. Maybe a little pit stop here at 74.20. But I would say, guys, the thing you got to consider too beyond these positions is when you have these areas of opportunity where it's thin, it doesn't mean that we just fly right through it. The probability to me is that if the market has some strong bidding, you can move through those areas really, really quickly. The counter to that is that you can fall right back through them just as quickly, right? Like, so it has to prove itself because you're not like finding a support in here necessarily. This is really tiny support. So it's more of like, you can move through. I think we had a day like that the other day where it was a similar gap and we shot up into it and then we came right back down. So there's a lot of that when you're up here. So this is kind of like market's got to prove it, but there is a clear opportunity to move about 40 points in this range. So something to keep an eye on. Like I said, for me, I was really hoping we would just go test this overnight open and then by the New York Open kind of be flirting with 74.05, but there's every potential for this to just get up here and go. We could get another gap and go this morning. So not counting anything out. Chasing trades, what's my opinion about ICT? That's a complicated one for me. When I hear it, it sounds like just idiocy because it's all of these terms for things that look kind of plainly obvious if you're looking at the chart and price action. You know, oh, it's a failure to go higher, it's a failure to go lower, it's a higher high, it's a lower low, and all this kind of stuff. So the terminology thing is kind of the thing that throws me off with it because it just seems so obvious that like, why overcomplicate it? I think you could probably draw a parallel to like what I'm talking about with regards to gamma and market maker positioning and like, oh, there's all these terms and it's overcomplicating something, but it's like, it's math, right? Like it's the Black-Scholes method of options value. So when you look at the relationship of these things, they are defined, and it's heavily leveraged by funds and institutions all over the world trading billions of dollars, right? So I put a little more validity into something proven as opposed to something created by an absolute crackpot psychopath. And when you look at the prevalence of ICT, it's primarily like a social media trading sphere kind of thing, where I think it's easy to get a lot of people that are new looking for help, looking for an outlet, looking for a strategy. And the more complicated terms you throw on something, the more somebody sounds like an authority on the topic. So the easier it is to sell something to someone. That's kind of like my 2 cents on it. I just have a hard time dissociating like the guy, the personality behind it, from anybody who uses it well. So I don't know if that makes sense. I'm not trying to take shots at anybody. Like even Christian, I know he uses it, but he was a mastermind student first. So I think he's taken things from it that resonate with him and found a way to leverage it and like supplement what he was already doing after the mastermind, right? So that's why, to me, like, I'm not going to judge you if you're successful with something, but I also have the opinion that I have, because it's like, it's really hard to break it away from where it came from, right? Like, how do you have any exposure to that guy and not kind of like raise your eyebrow at it and be like, the master algo, like some of the stuff I've heard is just wild. So I just have a hard time, separating those things for sure. But that's me. So hopefully I didn't offend any ICT people in the chat. If you're there, still love you. But as long as you're making money and you have a repeatable risk management system, then, keep doing you. All right, see, we've got a few more people that have joined. If you're here so early, thank you so much for being here. Happy to have you. Kind of a whole lot of nothing going on here so far in the pre-market. We're just kind of stuck in this little disgusting 10-point range, I guess. I did take a little speculative short, kind of looking for us to trade to the bottom of this little range here, maybe test the overnight open, but so far it's a slog, so you're not missing much. But I think if you're here for a plan on the day, these little zones on the chart are kind of the areas of opportunity. So I think if we break 7405 and hold that, I would fully be saying 74.40, 45 is like my safe target on the day for expectations. Sounds good, Chasen. Yeah, I honestly, like, when I hear this stuff though, I'm legitimately just like, what are we talking about here? Displacement. Like there's just terms where I'm like, okay, But I think if you're even loosely aware of price action, everybody's mostly trading the same way, right? Like you're buying low, you're selling high, if you want to break it down to something that simple, right? So Victoria and Virginia, there's the two VCs I see. Thank you guys. At what point in your journey did you start to realize how important it was to formulate these plans and calculate the market move for the day? I think for me, it came down to just like how I was trading SPX. I was just pretty much taking naked calls and puts, right? And you're trying to find a way to say, like, how do I know when I should cut most of my position, or when should I hold these runners? Because like if you guys trade or have any exposure to SPX, you understand how different that can be, right? Like how difficult it can be to make that determination because it fluctuates so much. And that's kind of what kickstarted it to me, because there'd be some days where I would be able to hold for like that extended trend. I've got a contract in the money. It stays in the money all day long. I can let it settle in the money and get like, you know, like the max pay for that contract on the day. And then there would be those days where like I was in the money by, you know, 10 strikes, or not 10 strikes, but like, you know, 10 points. And I would just be like, oh, this is great. Like, and then all of a sudden it would reverse on me. And I'm like, this thing is now worth half as much as it just was 5 minutes ago. So once I understood that there was more to SPX, and like I started looking into like, why is SPX the most liquid index, and why do these options have this multiplier versus something else out there, and like, why is trading SPY not as profitable as trading SPX when it's basically the same moves? The more I dug into it, the more I just kind of was like, well, I want to know more, and I want to know more. And then it was just easier for me once I got familiar with this to say, like, it's so simple to build a plan. And if you know where to look and you understand how these positions dictate a response or warrant a response and can cause big moves in the market, it just got a lot easier for me to make those definitions, right? Like, I can way more tightly define my risk. There's times where I do have a 10-point stop because like I want to see it move into a range and I want to give it that allowance. What's up, Hex? But then there's other times where like I only want a 5-point stop because I don't trust it. Like, to me, that would be me right here at 73.80. I would want us to get down to it, but I'm not giving this a big stop because of this little zone below it, right? So I'm willing to give it a shot, but I'm only giving it 5 points, 7 points at most. Like, I'm not giving it a full 10 depending on my size, right? So if it wasn't for having that knowledge, I wouldn't be able to make that determination. So hopefully that answers your question, Victoria. It's kind of conditional, right? Everything's contextual based on the chart. Not every day is the plan so crystal clear to me. So do I shave my position on the way to targets or just hold? Most of the time I hold, especially if there's a clear range. I'm like yesterday, I didn't take a trim until we hit 30 points on that second trade, right? Because like, why would I cut at high a day when I know that we can go another 20 points from there? So I'm holding for that, but all I'll do is I'll just move my full stop. I will not take like one contract up here and leave the other one at break even. Like, I'll just move the full position. I'm kind of like Jake in that way, where I will think more about like how I manage that trade, because it's like, I would be so mad if I only got filled on one and then I let it come back half when I could have just said, I'm happier to take more of that profit because my whole thesis was based on this, right? So like today, I took this short and it was completely speculation to say, wow, we keep rejecting this strike with this position. I want to see us actually go to the bottom of this bigger range. But if it's holding here, now the odds are this trade is pretty quickly invalidated, right? Maybe it does break up and it rejects 74.05 and then it goes down. That's fine. But I could easily, take the counter of that and say, if it breaks 74.05 again, my expectation is now we start working up into this range. You just have to be able to define the risk the way you want. Morning, Paul. Thanks for joining. Cap's kind of fire. My wife got it for me. I think it's like a hunting brand or something, and I am not a hunter, so sorry to disappoint any fans of whatever the hell this thing is, but when you're getting older and your hair is thinner, you kind of start just becoming a hat guy by default. If this breaks 74.05, would you look for longs? Sorry, guys. Yeah, I mean, that's my whole thesis on the day, is if we break over that, like, that's the biggest, clearest range to capture on the day. So I would be looking for like an acceleration through there. So what I'm looking for, going into the day, depending on what we do going into the open, like the New York Open, is I would have a hard time thinking that we're not building up for that kind of a move. I just don't see the market necessarily cooling off all of a sudden, Tops are not formed when sellers get stronger. It's when people don't want to buy anymore. And right now, people want to buy. So until that stops, you got to just ride the wave. You know, a lot of people think it doesn't make sense or whatever because like, oh, Iran is still a thing. Yeah, the market's priced that out. Until it is a risk and becomes a known risk again, the expectation is the market has priced beyond that conflict. They have moved on to earnings, right? So until there's some, you know, unknown that becomes known, the market is pricing what it's pricing in. So you can have a bearish view of the global geopolitical structure, but that isn't doing anything to your chart. That just keeps going up. So quit betting on that mattering. If there's a reversal in the market, there will be signs, and you will have a way of doing that. Catching the absolute top is for absolute idiocy. So if you want to be a moron, then try to time the top when you are breaking out of a months-long range to new all-time highs day after day. So sometimes it's just that simple, guys. Do I care about all-time highs? No. That's why yesterday I said we're going to go to 73.90. You know, it's like because I have something telling me someone's waiting there. And there's things you can watch for those reactions. I don't go into the day worried about all-time high. I go into the day looking at this saying, if we break here, I would expect us to go to this potentially. And then I build my plan around that. Who gives a shit about all-time high? Sorry, that's just me. Let's see. Hey, Eric, honestly, I wasn't trying to sell you on it, but I just think it's a big confidence booster, especially if you're somebody who's newer or you're looking to try to find something repeatable, some kind of an edge, even just as a better understanding of risk management from what you see on the chart. I really do advocate for it. I think that was a game changer for me. Like, you guys got to remember, futures weren't as prevalent when I was starting. It was really more options specific. I would say options was kind of like the dominant signaling thing. Like, a lot of discords were spun up on that. A lot of people on Twitter, like, that's how they got followers, was options trades. And obviously prop firms have changed a lot in the last couple of years. So I think it dominates the space now, which is great. It's a low barrier to entry. But at the time, you know, I had a really hard time defining any kind of an edge to say, I got the direction right, but I picked the wrong strike. And if you get the right entry trigger and your risk is defined, the idea of having like a great risk to reward, you know, some people trade 1-to-1 and they're fine with that. They're like, if I lose, I lose. But if I win, it's the same every time. That's fine. You can have a higher win rate that way, but you're not going to catch the like huge, you know, or like even yesterday, 35 points on ES is great. But it's not like, oh my God, like unbelievable banger trade. Like, those are kind of repeatable, right? But like, if I only risked 5 points, then it's a better trade to me because the risk to reward was so outsized. And those are things I didn't really start understanding until I got into the mastermind. So I hope it goes well for you, but we'll be there. Can I show SPX? Yes. Same idea. Same profile. So yeah, 73.80 on SPX is kind of your number to clear on the day. 74.20 would be like the absolute max. I mean, like, you can even be more conservative and say like, you know, 20 points, depending on where we open. That is going to have so much to do with it, right? Because if you don't actually open over here, then 74.20 seems like a bridge too far, right? Like, that's a big range. So you can just kind of say, well, even this first test is a healthy target. Anything beyond that is a bonus, because you know for damn sure you're not getting above this more than likely. This is just like yesterday. This is like, this is actually technically a bigger range of longs than yesterday was. Obviously yesterday changed intraday, right? Like, the positioning shifted yesterday. So those things can happen. But my base case yesterday, guys, is when we were right about here, I think at 40 yesterday, so right here yesterday, I was short. This little pullback, I shorted this. I didn't take profit like I should have because I was thinking we might actually get down closer to the opening print. But the profile shifted, and as I watched that, that's when I made the decision when I got stopped break even on my short to really think hard about like, okay, what are the potential outcomes here? And that's when I got long and I caught another 30 points, and I caught the open long yesterday. So hopefully that's something you can think about with regards to today. Even if we don't open over 73.80, it doesn't mean we can't get to 74.20. It's just that I shift my rational brain into saying, all right, maybe this is the tighter range to consider, 74.05 to 10 versus 80 is still a good move. It's still about 30 points. Like, catch part of the move, not the whole thing. Hopefully that helps you there, Com. Vishwa says, which year of your trading did you turn prop? 24. Spring of 24 when I joined the Discord. That spring, before I took the mastermind, I was already on the road, right? Like my swoop, my Nike check mark was already starting to go up. But once I finished the mastermind, the confidence took me to that next level. But then I'd say then I just like hit the ground and just went on a monster run with SPX, and it just kind of like everything just shifted from there for me. So I think everybody's journey is different, Vish. You've just got to understand that like if you give up, your journey's over. You've made that decision. But you need to understand that like you cannot look at anybody else. I think Ron said it the other day. I didn't see the whole clip, but like comparison being the thief of joy, it's very true. There's always going to be somebody else making more money than you. That's true in any situation, any job. Why does that guy get the bonus? Why does that guy have the job title and get paid more? If you're so focused on that, you either need to do something to change your circumstances, or you need to acknowledge that like you are on your own path and maybe you don't necessarily need that. You're just looking for consistency first. So many people get lost in the profit side of this. I can't even count how many people have DM'd me about, how do I get this payout faster? Why are you focused on the speed? If you are trading for the outcome, it's because you are trying to put value to money that is not in your pocket yet. Until it is in that account, it's not yours. You can't ascribe value to something that isn't real. None of your prop firm money is yours until it's in your account. So people will look at that and be like, oh, if I get that payout, I can do this. Stop that. Unless it's in your account, you can't spend it. Stop fucking around. So like when I'm sorry, Vish, this isn't at you, but like when I get those questions, it infuriates me in a way because it tells me your focus is not on the right thing. It's like my journey is mine. What the trigger was for me might not be the trigger for you. You might see this gamma stuff and be like, that's my answer. Why do you think that? Can you see the edge? Does it reverberate with you somehow? Does it add another layer of confluence to what you're already doing that has been successful, but your problem is maybe just consistency and execution? Well, then this isn't going to help you necessarily execute better. You still have to execute. Yeah, the thing, Vish, is like you are constantly surrounded in this space with reminders of like what could be and what you don't have yet. So it's really easy to get lost in that. I think you have to find a way to like separate yourself from that. I know it's easier said than done, but yeah, man, there's so many questions around that. Like any answer myself or anybody else gives is going to be like the answer. And I think that's just really hard. It's hard to give a good answer that doesn't come across frustrated for me because I want to be helpful, but there is no magic bullet. It's just a grind, guys. One day it'll click for you. And most of the time that click is around like the basic stuff. You will look back and you're like, no wonder those guys said the same shit all the time about risk management and consistency and process over profit, because it's the truth. Do you want to make one big payout, or do you want to be consistent and stack payouts up over time? Which one do you think is more valuable? Anybody can hit the lottery. There's no skill in hitting the lottery. But if you want to be profitable, there's only one path to that, and that means making more than you spend. So if you just keep freaking Hail Marying stuff on your credit card until you get the big payout, well, your risk to reward was probably pretty shit because now you've got to pay all that off. So make the barrier to entry cheap, make the payoff better. Get that higher risk to reward because you defined your risk, you stuck to your process, right? Doesn't come overnight. Oscar, good morning, Luke. Oscar says, when you say mastermind, you're referring to Jake's. Yeah, just the Discord. It's just, and again, guys, we're not here to sell stuff, right? But if you're interested in that, if you're looking for a strategy, a program, you want some help, you want to know how Jake trades the way he trades, why I came from that program, Ron, Christian, Alan, we all started there. It's a great value for you. So if you want, I'll share the link here, and you can certainly join up. There is a code you can use as well, but I'm in there doing this stuff, sharing my trade ideas and all that. So yeah, you have access to a lot of materials. It's pretty cheap, all things considered. So if you're there, that's great. Morning, Pete. Thanks for joining. Yeah, no problem, Oscar. Happy to do that. And again, if you guys have questions, we'll answer them as they come up. What days am I on stream, Tex? First, thanks for being here. I don't think I've seen your name yet this morning. If you're here, thank you for joining. Tuesday, Thursday seems to be the current slot. I don't know if we'll do more. If there's a demand for it, then maybe we'll do Monday through Friday again. But I think right now it's just kind of Tuesday, Thursday. This is kind of a rough slot. There's not a lot of people up and watching this early. And Jake is, I think, doing, so he'll be on in like 30 minutes, I believe, from now. Or maybe, no, an hour from now, sorry. So yeah. But I'm just happy to be on and helping you guys out if I can. I think most of my value obviously is in helping you guys kind of see what the structure is on the day, what SPX and ES are shaping up to look like, where the danger spots, where should you be watching for certain reactions, and hopefully that helps you kind of define your trade plan as well, or maybe some confluence to what you're already looking for. If you guys trade NQ, structurally, where should I be watching ES and SPX to kind of say, I want to see this prove out a little bit more before I take this long, or whatever the case may be, right? That is kind of what I'm hoping to be able to provide to you guys on top of whatever else I can share. Like I said, my journey is different, but it doesn't mean that I can't give you some perspective. Morning, K-Dog. Thanks for joining up. Full-time pros. What's funny, Vish, is I am not a full-time pro. I am actually a full-time salaried employee somewhere. So there's a reason why I'm on in the pre-market and not in somebody else's slot. I've got a wife and kids. I've got pets. I've got other stuff going on. So this is very much a side thing for me, but it's been transformational. So I think that's why I'm such an advocate for it, is it doesn't have to be the only thing you do. Even if you only take 2 trades a day, if you're doing it right and you win more than you lose and you win bigger than you lose, it can still be like a net benefit. I think it's really, that's the other thing too about how much other people are making, is if you did want to say something about like taking value from a trade and what would it go to, you could literally just pick any bill. Oh, I paid for my cable bill today. I paid for my cell phone bill this week. Isn't that worth it when you look at the time you spent executing that trade? Obviously, trading is more, right? Like you go into more time, you're researching, you're charting, you're whatever. Like for me, the benefit is I've gotten to the point where my knowledge of this is I can look at this, I can know what the behavioral risk spots are. I can know what like the heightened probability zones are. And I can do that at a glance, and I don't have to think about anything else. And then it's if then to me. If this happens, then I'm doing this, or I'm reevaluating. And I can literally get in and out. I can look at this throughout the day if I need to, but for the most part, I take my couple of stabs and I'm happy with it. Like yesterday, I actually put on more trades than I thought I would because I caught the overnight action. So like I didn't think I would take anything yesterday. I was like, oh, I can be risk off today. But I saw some opportunities and I felt really strongly about it. So if I saw it, I was going to execute on it. A lot can happen in 20 years. The market has been around for a long time and it's shifted and changed. And like Jake said, now you're going to have even more, like volume of people trading futures because of the prop firm explosion. And now you're going to get single stock futures trading, which is going to change how those perform. Like if you just took the SPX to ES thing, right? And you said, oh, if I'm hedging a stock the way that they hedge SPX, and like how many people are trading futures or trading options already on 0 dates and weeklies for some of these Mag 7 names, what's not to like love about that? If anything, you're going to see probably more products in the space around single name options and then potentially futures. So nowhere to go but up. Drive full time, just sit and I set alerts and keep on trucking. Hey, Oscar, I actually know another guy that does that. I met him, super cool dude. His name is Hirsch. He's a super nice guy. And same thing. He's a full-time over the road trucker. And like while he's driving, or not while he's driving on the road, obviously, but like in between, if he has time, like he started trading to supplement and has been hugely successful with it. So like, yeah, if you can find a way, find a way. It doesn't have to be your whole life, guys. Like not, obviously you reach Jake's level or, Ron's full time and I think Christian's full time now. But like for me, if I was single, then, or I didn't have kids and I didn't have these other things in my life, I probably would be trying to go full time too, because the freedom that it brings you is super attractive. Maybe I'll get there someday, but like right now I just have a hard time saying like, why mess with something that's not broken? Like I'm still able to do something I'm passionate about for my actual job, and I get some benefits from that I have a hard time thinking aren't beneficial to my life and my family. So like trading is a bonus in that way, but I'm fortunate to have it go the way that it's going. Exactly, Evo. It's like your goals are your own, what you're trying to get out of the market and why, and what your enough number is on a day, I think is up to the individual. So I think the unhealthy thing is letting the obsession over the number like dictate your relationship with it. And I think that is the risky thing with props as well, is you have this hard number you have to hit. And I think the more people obsess over that payout number and the target and this and that, instead of knowing that if I just execute my trades and I manage my risk, and then I look in a week back, especially if you haven't taken many payouts. I think that's the other thing, is for people that have had a hard time even securing profit. Like if you're someone who passes an eval and blows the funded right away, it's because you are now so close to the real money, you start behaving differently mentally because you are only focused on that. What got you there does not matter because you are so emotionally and psychologically attached to the outcome at that point. You start behaving differently. So if you can't find a way to dissociate yourself from that and just focus on the process that got you there, you won't get those profits, right? So, hey, Tommy, thanks for joining. Appreciate it. Yeah, I think it's just, I don't know. Like I said, now that I've been doing this and also I've been around, like I was just another guy in the Discord for a long time, you see enough people doing things a certain way, you kind of have these conversations frequently. And it's like I said the other day, it's like it's easier to have a community of people who have gone through the things that you're dealing with and have come out the other side of it, and happy to share whatever I can to help somebody get over the line. But sometimes the simple answer is the best answer. Focus on the process. If you do that and you dissociate yourself from the outcome, when you look back in a week, you would be amazed, right? Nobody likes to sit there and just do the simple math of, okay, if I just made $200 a day on average, 4 out of 5 days a week, and I looked back at the end of the month and I had no expectations around like what I was going to do with that money or how close it would get me to a payout, most people would be like, man, how much time did it take me to actually make that money? And then you compared it to your day job's hourly rate or whatever. Most people would legitimately be like, oh my God, that's awesome. But we're in a world where things are in front of your face on social media and you're comparing yourself all the time. It's easy to kind of lose sight of that simple fact. So I think if more people did that, like I said, process over profit, you'll get there. You have to earn the right. And if you can't go through that process, you haven't earned it yet. Yeah, everybody's gone through the same stuff. Nobody has just like, I guarantee you, nobody has started trading and been an instant success. Every trader has gone on tilt. Every trader has gone through a rough patch. Every trader has done those things where they've like executed so well and then they decided to take one more trade and they didn't execute very well. They chased and then they get frustrated and then they want to try to make back what they just lost so that they're still more green on the day instead of being happy with just being green on the day. Like everybody has that story. Just like everybody has that banger holy grail trade, somebody's also got the exact same dog shit reaction trade or whatever in their notebook, right? So yeah, just don't get too down on yourself, guys. Like that's kind of where I'm going with it. It's a journey, right? That's why it's a journal too for a lot of people that use that, having that to look back on and be like, I remember how that one made me feel. I remember why I was so mad with that trade that day. Wow, that's really close to today. Why did I let that happen again? What can I do to make sure that doesn't happen the next time or reduce the odds of it happening? Right? I just said it the other day and I think it got reposted. Like trading is a mirror. If you want to know who you really are, you can't hide from yourself when you're trading. There's nobody that can take the blame. People complain about like a news candle or something. You put the risk into the market. You accepted that that was a possible outcome. You don't get to complain. There's no crying in the casino when that happens, right? But if you're doing things over and over again and how you're reacting and all of those things, that's why I say it's a mirror. It's you. You are the person who's choosing how you're reacting or not to a situation. You are the one executing that trade correctly or poorly. It's a one-on-one game. There is the community of trading, and then there is the individual aspect of it. So we can all be here and share stories and opinions and whatever, but like at the end of the day, it is you versus you. It is a one-man sport. So, just got to keep that in mind. Anyway, that's enough Mitch ranting for the morning. I swear I've got a personality, guys. I'm not just some crank here talking about gamma and mirrors all the time. But if you are new, I do see we've had a little uptick. We've got a few more people joining as the morning has gone on here. Thank you, number one, for being here. Obviously, we are kind of chopping away, going nowhere suddenly in the pre-market. But looking for the ranges today. I think the story is going to be the 74.05, or you could say the pre-market high. But my expectation is getting over and holding 74.05, 74.30, and then maybe if you're lucky, an extension higher. But that is what I am considering for the upside. I think 73.80 is maybe a little risk spot, but I don't think you get much further than 73.50 if you sold today. I don't see any world in which we're worried about this range down here unless there's like some crazy left field headline or something. but that's just me. Miggy, what's up? Thanks for joining. Yeah, if you guys got questions out there, don't be afraid to throw them out. But as far as the plan goes on the day, guys, that's what I'd be looking at. I took this short, if you're wondering why I'm shorting, if I think we're going to go higher. It was pretty much just looking at this, thinking maybe we can just go test the bottom of this range. But the fact we're kind of holding over yesterday's high-ish area, I think is a good sign that as we move into the New York Open, we're going to want to see what happens at the 74.05 strike. I could be proven wrong, though. It has happened. But I do think now, if I'm looking at VIX, a lot of people are confused, like, hey, why is VIX going up relative to us going up? And there reaches a point, guys, where volatility is just too cheap. So when volatility is that cheap, people are going to buy volatility in the sense of like hedging this move up. It's protection. It's a strategy. So a lot of people are like, oh my God, VIX is going up, but we're going up. That's a sign we're going to sell off. No, it's not. It's normal. So if you got someone saying that's some kind of doomsday clock, fuck them. You know, sorry, no offense if that's one of you, but that's not something that you need to actively worry about. The market is telling you what it's doing. We're not going to top until there's less buyers at the top. It's not like sellers overwhelm. If sellers had any leg to stand on right now, we would be lower already. We're not. They don't have the juice. The juice is on the buy side currently. It doesn't mean that we won't go back down at some point, but trying to time that off the back of this move is straight stupidity. So stop trying. That's what a hedge trade is for. Hedge the upside by buying protection for the downside. But as you can see, nobody's really doing that right now, so stop it. Just me, though. Poison Graphics, what's up? Thanks for joining NPC World. You as well. Thank you for being here. You know, guys, I'm not sure why, but I'm guessing the music probably died for you a long time ago. It hadn't for me, so I'm really not sure why that happens with OBS, but it just magically quits playing. So there was a little ambiance for a while. Do I look at NQ levels like this? I do not, actually. The reason is there's not like a one-to-one correlation. So there's no way for me to do that. But I do know quite a few people. There's a group I used to be with before, and when I would post this kind of stuff, a bunch of them would essentially like always have SPX up next to their NQ chart and kind of have some of these key strikes there and just like notes or whatever to be like, oh, that's a big spot. Like, and I do that on occasion as well. Like I will supplement a trade with NQ. I don't know if you guys are new to the channel, if you're new to what I do, but even the other day, I forget what trade review that would be on. If you go to my Instagram, you can see it. Oops. And I'll share that here if you want. I'd encourage you guys to go there because like what I cover here, if you like it, if you're not fully getting it or not familiar with it and I haven't delved into it enough for you today, go check those out. I think they're pretty in-depth. You'll see a pre-market plan, sometimes intraday, and then you'll see the end of day to be like what actually happened. And I actually was short ES, and while I was holding those runners, I ended up taking a long on NQ because I wanted that risk to the upside, and I felt like the risk to the downside was already like done, if that makes sense. So I was happy to hold my runners, but I really wanted the upside exposure, and we were at a key level on ES and SPX, and that's why I took the NQ trade, and it worked out. Morning, Cole. Thanks for being here. So hopefully that answers your question, PBN. I don't know if it does, but that's kind of the long and short of it is, yes, I do trade them. And Victoria, I don't really care about divergences. Like I look at it, but I'm kind of primarily focused here. And I use this as kind of my North Star. And more often than not, a lot of those market reactions, like because of the weighting of tech in the basket across the S&P, similar to NQ, is such that I actually put more stock in what what the ES and or SPX is doing than I do the NQ. So, but again, that's because that's primarily what I trade. It doesn't mean that there's not value in divergences, but if you only looked at divergences, you'd probably lose your ass more than you won off of it. And I say that because I've seen a lot of people do that, where they're like, oh, there's a divergence, and they take that as some kind of holy grail indicator, and in most cases it ends up being like a nothing burger. I think it depends more on like the structure and the time frame you're looking at. But for me, no. Short answer is no. Yeah, Tommy, the big thing is like there's a reason why hedging is a term and why it's a strategy, right? Like you can express a downside bias while also riding the trend higher. And if that downside is something that you cannot shake, you hedge for it to cover you in the event it happens. But more bears have been burned being negative and short on this rally than any of them have made money probably in the last like month. So the people that will make money on whenever the market decides to puke and get like a downside test or maybe go fill one of these recent gaps is they'll all claim the world is burning finally and this is the big one. But the people who will actually bank off that are the ones who just had a hedge on. And if it doesn't hit, they've made enough money catching this uptrend that it's just a scratch, right? So that's how I would look at that. That's what I do. I literally, at the beginning of each week on these rallies, I have put a not too far out of the money put spread on XSP. I'm not putting any SPX spreads on with conviction right now because I don't really believe in it. So I just use XSP. I pay couple $100 a spread, and I'm looking to capture a potential 100-point range in the SPX, or I'm just looking to get some volatility capture. I won't be mad if I don't make like a shit ton, you know. I'm just trying to have some protection, and I'm willing to pay a little bit for it just in case. Idea is it will range between 405 and 73.80 until one of those hold, and the next target move is to 445 for the upside and 73.75 for the downside. Yeah, that's kind of the long and short of it. PBN. It's just like the expectations. If you cover and hold 74.05, you have now opened the door to the upper range. And there's really not a lot of blockage, I would say, between 74.05 and 74.45. Like the meat of the move is available to you higher. The one thing that I would say counter to that, despite having just said that's the open door, is that a lot like yesterday, when we got kind of this initial pop from 30 up to 75 yesterday, like that initial first move, 75 and higher was looking a lot like this range is today. So what can happen is if you don't get up here, the structure, the reason why it's so like bright green in this area, but then it gets thinner in this range until you get kind of down here, that's where like the gamma part of this comes in. And what that's telling you is just like that it's the reaction to the change in delta, right, of those options. When it's stacked like this, of this kind of size, any movement higher is getting sold against. So like the move has to be strong. If we get failures up here, that's why I'm highlighting these lower ranges. Like know where you might have little pit stops. I don't think you like flush through these zones necessarily, but the opportunity area is here. You just have to know that like there's also not a lot of support until 74.05. So if we got a strong pop up to 30, if the market isn't like really, really strong on that move and it can't sustain it, you can look for reversions back down to like a key balance area. I think the strongest one on the day is probably there. But that's also why it's kind of like the make or break spot in a way, is if you're not really holding over that, I think that's kind of where the risk is. So I would actually kind of maybe even argue that I don't know, 73.80 kind of seems better to me as like that potential risk spot. Let me just look here. The hard thing is I know I'm catering to a lot of futures traders by showing this on ES, and I do trade futures, don't get me wrong, but like this information is based off of SPX pricing. So I just want to make sure I'm accurate in how these things are lining up. So yeah, I would actually say this 73.60 is maybe more of the line in the sand, which is kind of pretty much this 85.80 area. This is what the reason why I have this yellow bar here, guys, is to kind of signify that like this is your risk line. Like if you trade under this into this lower range, you see how everything gets a little smaller with each stop until you get down here where it's kind of mostly all green. The risk you run there is that like 73.80 becomes like a kind of ceiling, and then you get stuck under it in this lower range, and you can even like grind down even without like a bunch of strong selling or volatility. It's just kind of the idea that the same way that this would be magnetic up here because there's a lot of it, the same thing can happen down here. You can just kind of find that stronger balance lower. But again, base case, we're in a big uptrend. It's hard to think that we don't hold 80 and just kind of this becomes your range between 405 and 80 for a while. Maybe you just have a sideways chop day, but the opportunity for you is definitely like the same thing that we had the other day where I said if we clear this, the odds of like even a grindy slow drift up, if nothing else happened and you're holding over 74.05, the odds of this being like a magnetic zone where you just kind of need, let's just draw it. You could seriously do something like this all day long. And then you get a test and you come back down and you just do this. And then before you know it, by the end of the day, somehow you're up here. That kind of grindy, drifty, chop shit is 100% possible on a day like today. That's like the gamma angle of this. So don't want to get too in the weeds on that. But yeah, that is the potential. So hopefully that makes sense for you guys. So it's thin, it can go up a lot, but only with strength because it's thin both ways. Yes, PBN Josh, that is the key. Just because it's thin doesn't mean that it's only bullish. The whole point of it being thin, or if this was all red just means acceleration, both directions. So it can be a benefit, but if you get a rejection or any kind of selling, you can sell right back through those zones. So it is something you need to be aware of. That's why, like, even if you looked at this and said, hey, if we're holding 74.20, even though these are tiny green, like you could say, if we're holding that and we clear 30, then I expect the rapid test to 45, right? Like you can think of it that way as well. I'm just drawing these bigger, broader zones to kind of simplify the if-then possibilities. If I'm holding over 405, I'm expecting a test at 30. If 30 breaks, I'm expecting 45. But I'm not expecting to go higher, right? So that is just me. Antonia, sorry to hear that, but one account does not define you. So just be safe. I think there's going to be a lot of setups that present themselves. You just got to be patient and wait for those. Where do I get my data for gamma levels? Czar Trader. I personally use VS3D. I have used options depth to great effect. They also started doing 1-minute updates as opposed to 10-minute. So depending on your familiarity with it and what you want to use, you can check those out. There's a lot of services. There's Spot Gamma. There's plenty of people successful with those. I just have this indicator on my chart and I'm just pulling the hard values at each strike in the pre-market and saying, I just want to show it on my trading view chart. So hopefully that is helpful to you guys. I will say I don't believe I'm giving away any prop accounts today. I think we're waiting for some of the previous giveaway winners to kind of settle that whole thing up because take profit trader was a little bit different and what was required for people to claim those winning accounts. So nothing this morning, so sorry to disappoint you guys there, but I do think we'll be doing some more giveaways here in the near future. If you guys didn't see, there's going to be a new Grand Cup, I think it's called, for Tradeify that looks like that could be pretty fun. So might take a stab there. I think you can sign up for free. It's all sim, and then you can qualify for payouts based on your performance there. So that might be something you guys can try. If you're new to futures and you want to see what that's like, it might be a fun experience for you. Or if you guys are wanting to get into any prop accounts and trade with us and support the stream, just make sure to use code RTRRAKE if you have a prop firm that you are familiar with or would like to try. You'll get the best discounts using either of those two codes. So RT or RAKE. Are the gamma bars based on 0 DTE? Yes. I don't care about anything further dated. I trade the 0 date because that's the most influence from those positions. So yeah. Anyway, guys, again, I appreciate you joining here. I know it's a tough slot, and if you guys are up early or wherever you are in the world, I appreciate you for joining so much. I think you will have Jake here in the not too distant future. I want to say maybe in the next hour. Let me double check that. Let's see. Yep, so in about 30 minutes, in about an hour, Jake will be on. So I don't think I am slated to go any longer than the next 5 minutes or so. So want to be respectful of that time and where I'm scheduled. I am not going to go long when you've got Jake waiting for you in just a little bit. But I, again, appreciate you guys being here. Yeah, look, I really love those. Like, which Lucid account did you end up doing? I think the flex is what I have done more often than not. I think even the Tradeifys, I've done the selects. I just like the flexibility. But yeah, Lucid, the Trade C platform is really great. So if you guys kind of like the TradingView-ish look and don't want to have to use TradingView for execution and stuff, I do think Trade C option makes Lucid attractive as well. And I do know that these other platforms make that available to you because I think it's Rhythmic technically that allows for that. So yeah, all great options. But I'm happy to hear it, especially if you use that code. That definitely supports the channel. Also, if you guys don't mind giving a thumbs up or subscribing, that just, again, helps us get our reach out there, gets more eyes on us so we can do more of these streams. I know for me, it is hard in the morning to get too many people in here, but hopefully we can help you guys get some knowledge, answer some questions at the very least. And from my perspective, I think the best value I can provide for you guys beyond that is kind of helping you formulate a plan, or at least being able to look at the ES or S&P and say, like, okay, what are those areas I should pay attention to? Where's the best opportunity directionally on the day? And just to kind of state that case one last time, I think you're looking over 74.05, and I think you would be looking at the potential for a test at 30. And if you hold that, getting up to 45, if you're looking at the downside, I think the first test I'd be looking down is this 80, see if we hold and come back up to this 405. And maybe the last thing you could think of is, okay, if we reject up here, lose 80, maybe you kind of get this move down to 65 and back up towards 80. I just don't really see a big downside risk on the day without some like really, really big vol coming in or something, guys. It's hard for me to think that you finish anywhere under 73.50. I can't I can't really get my head around it. I just think it might be hard to move substantially higher today up into this range. So even being happy with 30, is something that I would think is okay. So yeah, I think I'll leave it there unless there's any questions you guys have here into the close of my stream. I appreciate you being here once again. If you guys care to join the Discord, you can do that. I'll give that one last shout if you're interested. Use code STREAM if you're going to do that to join us there. You'll see all my updates intraday. Otherwise, use code RAKE or RT on your favorite prop firms to help support the channel. If you can like and subscribe, we will do more of these. But yeah, guys, appreciate it. Best of luck today. Trade safe. And we will see you on the next one. All right? Take it easy.